Hi, welcome to Transform Today with me, Paula Pluck. Oh my gosh, what a week I've had. And I just want to share today things about timeless spiritual laws for manifesting the life you want. And a lot of today's um, teaching, if you like, is going to be inspired by the wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn. So it's been a really interesting week. Almost every coaching session I've had has brought me back to exactly the same spiritual lesson, although it arrived wearing different clothes. So one gorgeous lady has been sitting on a business idea for over 2 years now. And every time she's about to launch it, she tells herself, oh, I just need to do this. I just need to do that, maybe a course, and then I'll be ready. But that's not the truth. The truth is she is ready now. And another client longs for a loving relationship. Yet every time someone gets close, she quietly steps back because somewhere inside her, she's still protecting her vulnerable heart. And this other gorgeous lady wants to grow her business and create more abundance, but she's frightened of investing in herself because her mind keeps whispering, what if it doesn't work out? The stories keep on. I've got another lady telling me she wants more peace, yet every spare minute of every day she has filled with meetings, fixing, worrying, and she wants to receive more from life. But there simply just isn't space left to receive anything. So they're all different women, but with different stories, but exactly the same spiritual lesson. And that's why I found myself thinking about the lovely Florence Scovel Shinn, and I thought she'd love all of these conversations. Nearly 100 years ago, long before we were talking about manifestation, vibration, frequency, neuroscience, or quantum consciousness, Florence wrote a little book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And if you've ever read it, and well, if you've read it, you'll know it's great. And if you haven't, I genuinely encourage you to do so. It's one of those little books I return to again and again because every time I read it, another little gem seems to jump off the page. Florence believed something beautiful, and it's really simple. Most people consider life a battle, but it is not a battle, it is a game. And she wasn't saying life isn't easy. She understood disappointment and loss. She simply believed that just as there's a physical law like gravity, there's also spiritual laws quietly operating all the time. And when we understand those laws, life begins to flow. She wasn't simply teaching us how to manifest, she was teaching the timeless spiritual laws that make manifestation really possible. Because let's be honest, most of us would love better health, more love and relationships, greater abundance, work that lights us up, more freedom and joy. There is nothing selfish or unspiritual about wanting these things. The real question is, how do I become someone who is able to receive them? Let me say that again. So the real question is, how do we become someone who is able to receive them? And, thinking about, I always teach about the three planes of consciousness, which is one of the reasons I really connect to her work. I often say there are those three planes of consciousness that we can live in: the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane. They're not separate planes, they're really stages of awareness. The physical plane, that's where life happens to me. This is where many of us begin. We look at our circumstances and believe that's all there is. The bank balance tells us whether we're abundant. The relationship tells us whether we're lovable. The diagnosis tells us whether we're healthy. The outside world tells us who we are. And we've all been there. I certainly have. When we're living there, we genuinely feel that life is happening to us. And then we move into the mental plane. And on the mental plane, we have a bit more agency. Something wonderful begins to happen. We start to fall in love with personal development, with personal growth. We discover that our thoughts matter, that we can change our beliefs, that our words matter, and the choices we make really matters about our life. So our inner world is creating our outer world. And this is where most personal development and manifestation teaching lives these days, really. It's incredibly empowering because we realize, we're no longer powerless. And Florence teaches us to prepare before we receive. She teaches us that our word is our wand. She teaches us to expect good, to dig the ditches. We'll get into that story in a minute, to become a vibrational match for what we're asking to receive. And then there is the spiritual plane. Life happens through me. Something even more beautiful begins to unfold. We start to connect to the law of oneness. We stop asking, how do I get life to give me what I want? And we begin asking, how do I become a clearer channel for what life is already trying to express through me? And this is soul. It's about faith and trust. We're still manifesting, yeah, absolutely. But we're no longer manifesting from fear or control. We're manifesting from love. We're not trying to control life at all. We are cooperating with spiritual law, and we're really beginning to understand the law of oneness. What I do for myself, I also do for you. As my consciousness rises, I naturally help lift the consciousness around me. Ironically, this is often where manifestation really does become a lot easier because we've stopped fighting life and started flowing with it. And people often say to me, Paula, do you believe in manifestation? Why just doesn't it always work? And I answer to them, yeah, I absolutely do. But I don't believe in manifestation without transformation because we don't manifest from what we consciously want. We manifest from what our consciousness believes we are available for. And that's such an important distinction. I can stand in front of a mirror saying, I'm abundant, I'm abundant, I'm abundant. But if somewhere inside my consciousness, I still believe money's hard to get, or if it's about love, love will hurt, people like me don't succeed, I'm always overlooked, those things, then part of me is asking for abundance, while another part of me is completely resisting it. Florence called it resisting, and we do. But we might also say today, oh, it's limiting beliefs, it's conditioning, old programming. The name doesn't really matter, the principle does. Resistance blocks faith. So we can't be certain in our creations if we're resisting and we don't believe that we can receive because we're still listening to an old story. Can you see why this law, well, actually, can you see why this is such good news? Because those beliefs were learned, and of course, we can unlearn them. What's been conditioned can be reconditioned. There is always hope. And that's what I just love about it. We're not trying to become somebody else. We're simply removing the resistance that's been stopping us becoming who we've always had the potential to be. So we're removing, if you like, the barriers to the presence of love. So, yeah, she teaches this great thing about dig the ditches first. One of her, and Florence does refer to the Bible all the time. And one of her favorite Bible stories tells of two Allied armies crossing a desert and they run out of water. The soldiers are exhausted, the animals are collapsing. There isn't a cloud in the sky. And so they pray to the prophet Elijah, and Elijah gives them what must have sounded like the strangest instruction imaginable: dig ditches. So, can you imagine? You're there dying of thirst and you want your advice is to dig ditches. Yet they have to trust and they dig. And during the night, many miles away, in the mountains, heavy rain falls, and suddenly a flash flood rushes down into the valley, and every ditch they prepared is filled with water. And the water saves the armies. So Florence loved this story because it explains spiritual law so beautifully. The blessing had somewhere, to land because the ditches were there. They'd prepared. And how often do we do the opposite? We wait until we feel confident enough before we go and speak. We wait until we've got the clients before we create the new website. We wait until we've found love before we open our hearts. We wait until we have money before believing abundance is possible. So this is where faith really is, it prepares us first. Okay, so a story from my own life many years ago, and I've experienced Florence's teachings in many ways, but this one I think is quite relevant. So many years ago, I founded a charity called Supporters of Leukemia Victims Everywhere, and we spent months fundraising to buy a cell mark counter for our local hospital, and we needed to raise around 80K. And the presentation ceremony was only a week away, and we were like 22,000 short. And everyone kept saying to me, "Come on, Paula, you're going to have to cancel." But something in me just wouldn't let go. And it wasn't denial, it was a real trust and an inner knowing. And I simply knew that somehow it would come. And the trustees met the following Wednesday at midday to decide what to do. And it was like 11:30 that morning. And just half an hour before the meeting, and a check arrived for just over 22,000. And what's a miracle here is one of our trustees had sent out 5 letters to people who had supported the charity, inviting them to consider leaving a legacy gift in their will. And one wonderful lady did exactly that. And her gift was the precise amount we needed. The presentation went ahead. And now you can call that coincidence if you like. I call it one of those moments that reminds me why spiritual law works so well. And, beautiful words from Florence were God creates his own amazing channels. So our job wasn't to know how. And I think this is really important. We plant the seed, we keep on trusting, we dig the ditches, and that's our job. And I think often many of us actually sort of think our job is to know how, and it isn't. We're entering this field of potential of the unknown. So we're living from an identity that trusts. And Florence fills her books with wonderful, practical little stories. A dream a man has of traveling the world. He's got no money, no ticket, no plans, but he buys a traveling trunk, not because he's pretending, but because he's preparing. And seeing that trunk every day speaks to his subconscious mind, and he's digging his ditches basically. He's setting the scene. Another woman dreams of a beautiful home. She hasn't found it yet, but she buys a lamp and a vase. She's making space. Somebody else wanted a new job. Before the interview, they buy this lovely briefcase, they buy a lovely notebook. Again, not fantasy, preparation. So, can you see what Florence is teaching here? Live from the identity that trusts your good is already making its way to you. So today, we'd probably describe that as becoming a vibrational match. Not because you're fooling the universe, because your thoughts, words, and actions and expectations are finally pointing in the same direction. Florence talks about your word is your wand. She devoted an entire book to the one principle. She believed our words were creative. Every word either strengthens fear or strengthens faith. Just notice your own language today, tomorrow. What are you telling yourself? What is that internal dialogue? Is it things like nothing ever works out for me? I'm always rushing. Oh, I can't afford that. It's probably too late. We all do it, but every sentence quietly reinforces an expectation. And Florence encourages us to speak from possibility, and that's what I love. One of my favorite affirmations of hers is, I expect the unexpected. My glorious good now comes to pass under grace in perfect ways. Can you feel the difference in that? Her words become her wand. They teach her subconscious what to expect. She has another lovely saying as well. When she teaches these stories, they really make me smile. She talks about, have you ever seen a worried magnet? So think about it. A magnet doesn't chase, it doesn't worry, it doesn't keep checking whether it's working. It simply rests in its own nature, and everything that's meant for it is naturally drawn to it. And Florence is reminding us that when we're anxious, desperate, or trying to force life, it's actually losing our magnetism. But when we trust, when we prepare and become aligned with what we're asking for, we become the vibrational match. So remember, faith doesn't chase, faith attracts. Florence had lots of really wonderful statements. Receiving is a natural movement of giving, or all that is mine by divine right now comes to me. I claim my right to love, success, and prosperity. I establish myself in the limitless substance of the universe. I have abundance. Well, actually, Florence says in God, but you can say universe or light. And what I just, or source, whatever you want. And I think it's like really important to trust that the universe has greater ideas than we do in our limited consciousness. So she would, years ago, the one thing that stuck with me that she said was, God creates his own amazing channels. And how often do we decide exactly how our manifestation should arrive? It has to be this client, this relationship, this house, that opportunity. And meanwhile, life may have something even better. And Florence was always inviting you to hold a vision, but to release how it came, to release the root. She also shared the beautiful image of like the magic purse, a purse that can never become empty. Every time something leaves, more appears. And that was a consciousness building exercise, really. And it's a wonderful symbol, not just about money, but trust, about flow, of knowing that life is always seeking greater expression. And perhaps my favorite of all of her little, sort of reminders is, do not let your heart's desire become your heart's disease. And what that's basically saying is, hold the vision, prepare for it, trust it, but loosen your grip, because desperation isn't faith. So we have to trust. Trust is about faith. They go hand in hand with surrender. We don't plant our seeds and then go and dig them up in the garden. We trust that the flower will yield or the shrub will yield. So before we move into our meditation today, I'd like to leave you with three lovely questions that I think will start to shape your consciousness. So you can ask yourself, where in my life am I waiting for the water before I'm digging the ditches? So that's one question. Another question would be, what old story might still be creating resistance to the life I'm asking for? And what is one small act of preparation I could take this week, maybe even today, that quietly says to life, to God, the universe, I am ready? So, what's your preparation step? So perhaps manifestation isn't something we do to life. Perhaps it's what naturally happens when we stop resisting life and begin cooperating with spiritual law. We stop living only from the physical plane. We consciously create through the mental plane. And ultimately, we begin living from the spiritual plane where our soul leads. I love that. I love the soul sovereignty. We teach soul and science. So our faith deepens, trust grows, and we become a clear channel for love, health, abundance, purpose, and joy. We prepare before the evidence appears. We speak from faith, we remove the resistance, and we just become that vibrational match. So, yeah, our blessing has somewhere to land. So, what can you create so your blessings can land? So, let's just take a lovely deep breath together and become available. And remember, one of the affirmations was, I expect the unexpected. My glorious good now comes to pass under grace in perfect ways. All right then. So, after all what we've just explored, I'd love to invite you just to stop trying, to work it all out, and simply allow yourself to receive. And remember, Florence Scovel Shinn reminds us that life isn't a battle. It's a game. It's a game governed by spiritual law. And perhaps the greatest law of all is that we prepare before we receive. We trust before we can see. We dig the ditches before the rain arrives. So today, this isn't about trying to manifest something. It's about becoming someone who is beautifully available for life to flow through you. So just taking some lovely deep breaths, we prepare to receive. Breathing in peace and breathing out effort. Breathing in trust and breathing out control. Just let your jaw relax. Let your hands rest comfortably. And simply become aware you are supported, held, safe exactly where you are. And we're just going to create that beautiful sacred container. Imagine now a glorious, luminous golden light beginning to surround you. Warm, gentle and loving. This light expresses and represents divine intelligence, source, God, universal love, whatever name feels true for you. This light isn't outside of you. It's always been within you. It simply becomes brighter as you remember. Allow the beautiful golden light to surround your whole body, creating a sacred space of complete safety. And within this space, you can receive. Nothing needs forcing, nothing needs fixing. Everything is unfolding perfectly. And now gently bring your awareness to your heart. And you can place a hand there if it feels comfortable. And you can ask yourself, where have I been waiting for water before I've been willing to dig the ditches? No judgment, just notice. Perhaps you've been waiting to feel more confident before beginning. Or you've been waiting for more certainty before saying yes. Perhaps for someone else to believe in you before believing in yourself. Just notice. Notice with kindness and tenderness. Now imagine an old story gently appearing in front of you. Perhaps it's the I'm not enough, or that it probably won't work, or love hurts, or it's too late, or there isn't enough. Whatever your old story is, see it written on a leaf, floating gently down a beautiful stream. You're not fighting it. You're ready to let it continue on its journey. Those beliefs may once have tried to protect you, but you've outgrown them now. You thank them, you bless them, and let them drift away. They are not who you believe you can be. They are simply old conclusions of what has been learned. And we know what has been learned can be unlearned. And just feel yourself becoming a little lighter, more spacious, more open. And just imagine now, above your head, a radiant golden sun. And this is your soul, pure wisdom, pure love, pure possibility. And see this beautiful, radiant light gently flowing down through the crown of your head, filling your mind with peace, and every anxious thought softens. Every fearful expectation relaxes, and you feel the golden light flowing into your forehead, your eye, your jaw, your throat, now into your heart, and your heart begins to glow from within. Every cell remembering, I am safe to receive. I am safe to trust. I am safe to become. And your heart is open to receive the light, and you let your light shine. And that light flows down through the shoulders, the arms, hands, chest, abdomen, hips, legs, right down to the feet. Your whole body becomes luminous, a living expression of peace. Now imagine yourself standing in a beautiful open field, the field of oneness and potential. And you just notice something. You have become a magnet. Not a magnet trying to pull things to you with effort, but a magnet simply because of who you are. You don't chase. You don't worry. You simply rest in your own nature, and you see beautiful manifestations of more love, abundance, health, and joy surrounding you now as you rest in your nature, and everything of a similar frequency naturally moves towards you. Feel yourself becoming that steady magnet for love, for help, for joyful opportunities, for abundance, for meaningful relationships. And your heart, your mind, your body and soul are fully and beautifully aligned. You have become that beautiful vibrational match for your dreams and desires. You have prepared the ground and you receive. And now quietly imagine yourself digging one simple ditch, just one. What does your soul invite you to prepare for? Perhaps it's writing the first page, making the phone call, updating your website, booking the course, opening your heart, taking a walk to honor your health. Whatever it is, see yourself doing it with complete ease. Because as we know, that quiet trust, that surrender, that faith prepares before it receives. Okay, and you might like to silently repeat after me. My word is my wand. I have faith in the possibility and potential for my life. I trust the unseen. The universe creates amazing channels. I love my life. It is brilliant. My good is always making its way to me. I expect the unexpected. I just love the way everything is working out in my life. I couldn't have imagined that way. The universe is so creative and powerful, creating wonderful channels for good in my life. And my great goodness comes to pass now under divine grace in the most perfect ways. And just allow each affirmation to drop like a pebble into the still waters of your subconscious. Just receive now, simply receive. And finally, bring your awareness back to your heart once more and feel gratitude for everything you have now, for everything you've ever had, and everything you will ever have. You are the person ready to receive a more full life now. You are cooperating, co-creating with spiritual law, preparing before the evidence appears, trusting in life, trusting that life is always moving toward greater love, greater health, greater abundance, greater peace, and greater purpose. So let's just take one final slow, nourishing breath in and gently breathe out. And you can wiggle your fingers and toes. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and carry this peaceful certainty with you today. Keep digging the ditches, keep speaking from faith, keep trusting the channels, and remember, you are already the clear, loving, joyful magnet your soul was always created to be. Thank you so much for being with me. I'm sending you huge love, big love from my heart to yours. Until the next time, with great love, Paula.